A lot of times you see information out there about overt versus covert narcissism, right? You're like, wait a second, like, was mine overt? Was mine covert? And a lot of times the covert ones are hard to see, right? Because they're covert. Well, when you look at it, people are like, wait, I'm confused. Like the narcissistic personality traits, like they don't seem to match up with the covert narcissist. Like, am I the crazy one? Like, does that actually, are they not narcissistic? Like, what's actually going on with that? So today what I want to do is I want to kind of break down a little bit the 9 narcissistic traits and kind of compare them a little bit with overt versus covert. This is not comprehensive by any means. This is just some stuff that I've written down that I want to be able to share with you that might resonate in a couple ways of like, wait a second, like that makes a little bit more sense now. Or maybe like this is what people talk about, but this is what I experience. Maybe I can see the difference. Okay, that's my goal. So if you have a chance today, be able to share this, be able to have this go to someone else that might be able to help them understand this, please do so. Like, follow on any of the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Look us up under Raw Motivations. Maybe you're listening in the car as you drive to work on Amazon Music or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Give us a like, give us a review, because that just helps spread that awareness. Growth, healing, and change. If you haven't had a chance, download the Narc app. It's a lot of people on there finding that healing, growth, and change, and with a community of people that are combined there to help them move forward and to get coaching and weekly lives to be able to help them continue that process, continue that growth. Super excited if you join us with that. We'd love to see you there. But anyways, diving in. Overt versus covert. So with 9 narcissistic traits, like it can be ones that you can look at and you're like, wait a second, that makes sense. I can see the overt side, but what about the covert? Like, how does that make sense? How does that actually apply on like a day-to-day basis? So the first one that we normally talk about with DSM-5 is like the ego, the self-importance. Okay, typically you see this in like the overt aspect of like, I see this as like the asshole, like the big person, like the grandiose, verbose person that's like out there putting themselves out there, and it's typically like noticeable. Right? Like it's typically something like, oh, like that person, like, that person really thinks they are, the big man on campus, or, the highest person in the office, or whatever she might be, like anything like that. Okay. A lot of times you'll see with the overt relationships, like not always, okay, because this is not comprehensive, but a lot of times you'll see with the overt relationships, you'll see them shorter and then you'll see them more cyclical of like, hey, this is happening every 6 months, or this person can't keep a relationship longer than 4 years, or like whatever it might be. You'll see a lot of times it turn around faster, cycling through women, cycling through men, like whatever it might be, you might see that cycle a bit more. Now, on the other side, on the covert side, a lot of times you'll see a little bit more humbleness, shyness, almost like vulnerability aspect, but the attention still gets brought over there. Maybe that's the victimhood or the victim mindset. And a lot of times you'll see in the covert side, some of those like abusive traits ramp up more slowly over time. And it might not be even to the place where they're physically abusing or anything like that. Like a lot of times it's not. But it'd be like very slow. Like literally, think of it this way: the overt is like, dropping the frog into the boiling pot of water. The covert is turning it up. You don't realize over time what's actually happening, which is why a lot of times with covert you have longer relationships, because it's more hidden. The second one, fantasize, a lot of times over power, success, beauty, ideal love. You see a lot of times of the narcissist in like the public eye. Maybe they're flaunting their job or money, or, maybe it's like that show, that aspect of like, hey, like this is who I am. And they show that off. But a lot of times you'll see them like obsessed with like the small things, maybe obsessed with like their image or their muscles, or, how she looks on Instagram, like whatever it might be. You see a lot of obsession in that because it's a lot of fantasizing of like, this is who I am. This is like what I want. You see a lot of times moving up like corporate ladders of like being very aggressive, cutthroat, like running over people, steamrolling, like different ideas that are actually tied up there that you could like see. And you're like, whoa, like what's actually going on? With the covert, a lot of times you'll see where that ambition is there, but it's hidden more. It's more so like people like them, and so people like help them. So people like help them up like the chain. Sometimes you'll see this with sometimes you'll see this even on like the flip side of where the person like isn't engaged in the workforce. So they're the person that just wants to sit on the couch, but they think, oh, like maybe I'll attain to this, or I have this like dream, but they never like follow through. They never like go after it. Sometimes with the covert, you also have to get the aspect of like looking for ideal love, of like, maybe I can find this, maybe I can get this, from another person, or maybe this person will satisfy, or, why can't you see this at the envious part of like, why can't I have like that relationship? Then you have narcissism, which is special and unique. You see that overt wise a lot of times, like putting people down, like looking like the big person, but also just like, you know, putting people down and being like snobby, like rude, like arrogant, like all these different types of things. But you'll see it a lot of times in the aspect of, I see a lot of times with like the job environments of like, I'm better than everybody else there. Like I'm more special than this. Sometimes they can't hold a job. You'll see it like cycle through again, a lot of cycles. You'll see it cycle through again of like not being able to hold a job. But when they get fired from the job or when they leave the job, well, they're just a bunch of idiots. Like they didn't understand like who I was. They didn't understand how good I was. And then like you hear from people there and like, no, like he was, you know, an asshole. You know, he was a jerk. But a lot of times you'll have on the covert side of like that specialness and uniqueness, you know, knows that, hey, if I like crank this up of like, I'm so special, that's going to turn people off. So I need to kind of like hide that a little bit more. Sometimes they'll be more like humble. You know, you'll have more of the aspect of like wanting people to like revere or like thinking like, oh, like this person is so great because of this, or they're so special because they're serving a lot of these different ways. Like overt, you'll have like the person that'll like, you know, rage out. Like covert, you'll have the person that'll run across the street and help the old lady with her trash can or something like that. Like it's very much a lot of times almost like a service mindset sometimes of like, hey, like this is what's happening. This is what I'm doing for you. Like make sure you see that I'm special or that I'm like helping out. Admiration, a lot of times you see the overts get like really pissed off and mad when they don't get that, right? Like you're not giving me attention, and it's not as much about like, oh, I'm insecure. It's like, no, like you should be giving me this attention. You should be doting on me. Like this is your purpose. Like why are you not doing this? Which leads into the entitlement piece. For this covert narcissist, a lot of times you have the aspect of them being like likable. You know, it could even be like sad or like vulnerable of like they want that attention. And sometimes this is the Build-A-Bear aspect of like, I'm going to continue like building into you. I'm continue like saving you or helping you or fixing you, or all those vulnerabilities that you put out, those fake vulnerabilities to try to like hoover me in or like get me stuck with that relationship. Like I'm going to help fix those for you. And the narcissist enjoys that because you're fixing those things. You might not be giving that same admiration and attention that the overts give, but you're still putting in a lot of effort and admiration in like giving that supply to them of like, let's try to fix you. Let's try to get a little bit better. Entitlement. A lot of times you have the overt, you know, feel entitled with your time, your money, your energy, sex, like all types of things. And it's very much like overt. It's very much of like, no, like you owe me this, or like, you know, why aren't you giving me this like right away? Like there's very much that sense. With a covert, a lot of times it's more sneaky of like entitlement through like victimhood of like, you know, oh, well, you know, I thought you were going to spend time with me, or I thought, you know, you loved me, or I thought like, it's very like manipulative in nature, which is what we're moving on to the next one. With like manipulation, a lot of times they'll get to the place where they won't tell you what's actually wrong. Like they're not going to rage out at you and be like, you're an awful person because of this. No, they're going to keep it more like sneaky. They're going to keep it more like under the radar of where you might get the silent treatment. You might get stonewalled. You might get the idea of like, I know something's wrong, but I don't know what's wrong. Sometimes there'll be so much to the idea of like, you ask them what's wrong. And they're like, nothing's wrong. I'm fine. And then they give you a face or body language that shows that they're not fine, that shows that they might be pissed off. A lot of times with the manipulation on the overt side, it's threats, it's coercion. It's rage, it's yelling, it's physical violence. It's all different types of things that you can definitely see a lot of times more in this aspect, because like that rage and that pissed off part shines even more when you're not following through with the manipulation that they want, or when you're not following through with responding to their demands accordingly. You typically have lax empathy, right? So a lot of times you'll see that in the overt side of like no regard for empathy, like doesn't matter, like not responding, not caring, but a lot of times saying that, raging out at that, getting really mad about that, and not even trying, you know, not even appearing. With the covert, I think a lot of times you engage more with like the cognitive empathy or like learned empathy of like learning sometimes or using empathy to manipulate. You know, it's not just the fact that narcissists everywhere don't have any empathy. There's a lot of times I think they have empathy, but they refuse to acknowledge, they refuse to give it, because doing that would actually imply that they're wrong or that something's wrong. Sometimes I think you'll see even like the mirroring aspect in giving empathy with a covert narcissist, is they're not actually internalizing it, but they're just reflecting it back to you. So it seems like they have empathy. So it seems like they're coming across that way. The other one guy is envious of either themselves, like I think people are envious of me, or I'm envious of others. This isn't always consistent across the board, but like how I was kind of like processing some of it is a lot of times you have overts that, you know, think that everybody is envious of them. of like, I've made so much progress, I'm so big, I'm so awesome, I'm so great, that grandiose, that sense of self-importance, entitlement. Like, everybody is envious of me. Look what I've done, look what I've been able to accomplish. Sometimes you have on the covert side, they're more envious of others. So like envious of what they have in their relationship, or that person's status, or that person's like money or financial future, or whatever. You see a lot of times that happen in the covert aspect. And then arrogance. Oftentimes with the overt, you see like the prideful. It might be like easier to spot of like, wow, like that person's really, prideful about the things that they're saying, that they're doing, that they're way up there. And a lot of times you see that. With a covert, a lot of times it's hidden. Sometimes either those snide comments, or like putting you down, or making you feel unworthy or unvalued in what you're doing. Maybe it's like little things that you do like around the house, and they just make you feel like you're stupid for how you did it or what you engaged with. I hope this was helpful. This is like really fast. It was like 9 traits, like running through really fast. They are not like cut and dried of like, this is 100% this way and that's 100% this way. So don't watch the video and be like, oh my gosh, it's definitely that, or he's wrong because mine did both. Like it's just giving a small comparison, like really small, because narcissism literally is, as you get started, like drinking from a fire hydrant. It's 100% that way. And you have to do that for a period of time so you can understand and know what's going on, so you can continue to learn, grow, heal, and change. That's what we're about with Raw Motivations: awareness, growth, healing, and change. If you want to talk sometime, you can reach out, rawmotivations.com. Click the link down below, and we'll see you next time.